guys, that's a big angle. My head looks huge. There's not much I can do about it. Sorry about that. It's been a while since I've done a drive-in chat. I used to do them all the time before Porta-Pick. Wow. It's been a long ride, you guys, and it's not over. It's definitely not over. And it's been 3 years plus since this lie of the denturist by himself who killed 23 people unhindered and so on and so forth. Wow. It's been a long ride, and I really am glad and really appreciate you guys who have been here the whole time. I've been through a lot, a fucking lot, and I struggled a lot, and I don't know what I would do if I would even still be here if it weren't for the support that I got from you guys and my friends and my family, some family, not all. I shudder to think what the outcome would be, because there was some pretty low points, and it lasted a really long time, and I definitely am a strong-minded individual, and I know that I'm strong enough because of the shit I already went through in my life long before Porta-Pick happened, that I can get through shit, and I'm strong. So thank God I had that, and friends who reminded me on the regular basis, like Seamus and you guys, who supported me. But now I know that grief, regardless of how horrific it is, and I know people have been through worse stuff than me, and they've come through the other side, and I know that if you take an active role in your own personal mental health, like I didn't get counseling. I had like 5 counseling sessions, and then after I had already had my counseling sessions, I was told that victim services wasn't going to cover the amount that my counselor charges. So I stopped going because I had already established a relationship with my counselor and then couldn't go anymore. So I had to do the healing on my own. I know a lot of people have counselors and all sorts of people they get to go talk to and all that kind of stuff. I'm lucky because I have friends who listen to me, who have known me a long time, so they actually understand what I'm going through, instead of counselors who just know you through this one experience. They really don't know you as a person. They only know the experience you're going through. I'm just lucky. I'm lucky to still be here, and I'm lucky to be aware enough of how the world works that I have recently made a very deliberate decision to not be sad anymore. That doesn't mean that I have forgotten my brother and my sister-in-law and my beautiful niece, or what happened to them, or the cover-up that happened, I'm sure, long before it. Because if you believe that a 51-year-old denturist with a limp killed 23 people over 13 hours, and then it was just an open investigation that was honest and above board, this channel is not for you. It's for people who can see reality, as shitty as it is, in front of them. So the planning of this, which of course we didn't realize had taken place until after, the event itself and the subsequent cover-up is a lot more than I think most people could handle. And then you add to that the COVID nonsense, and like, this shit is fucking huge. And I dealt with it as a single parent who was homeschooling. So I'm about to give myself some kudos for dealing with this shit and coming out on the other side with an actual plan to get myself better and healed and over it, which has to happen, because if I don't, then I ruin my life and my daughter's life. And why? What is the point of that? There's no point to that. So I'm not going to do that. Oh, it's bright. I'm not going to do that. So with the end of the Mass Casualty Commission and the end of some other things that I had going on personally, I am using this time. Actually, it was funny because I started on January the 1st. That was my thing, is that I was going to give myself this year to get some healthy habits put in place to make up for the shitty habits I had established, and that everything was going to go into mental healing this year. And so I've been doing it, and it's interesting because I'm learning a lot of things about myself, and at this exact moment, I'm in a timeline where a lot of things that I have suppressed for a really long time, like 40 years, are starting to come up, and it's an interesting process to go through because I'm really sensitive right now. Like, my feelings are super sensitive. I had something happen with a friend of mine the other day that made me uncomfortable, and I think it was because I was just being too sensitive, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to tell this person, and I don't want to do that because it's not something I'd ever done. I'm always and have been very good at giving you my opinion or telling you what I think based on what I know, but never have I been good at expressing how I feel or boundaries for myself. And so that's my journey this year, is to do that so that I can heal and get better and not be depressed for the rest of my life. So anyhow, I told my friend how I was feeling, and my friend was amazing because she just is. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that you felt uncomfortable, and that's not my intention, and thank you for sharing with me, and blah, 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 blah. And, it's the point that I'm making, and the whole reason I started to do this car chat today to begin with, is that a lot of people I have seen sit around and they'll say, well, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and it'll happen, and blah, 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 blah. And that might be true, and people will say, good things come to those who wait. And it's one of the expressions that irritates me the most, because nothing comes to you if you are just simply waiting. Like, if you're just sitting around on the couch waiting for like a good relationship to come along, it's not going to. The man or woman of your dreams is not going to knock on your door just out of the blue. Or you're not going to get a raise from your job just because, you look cute and you show up to work. You have to be active in whatever it is that you want. So somebody, when I was a young person, a boss of mine told me that if you want something, you can't sit around and wait on the dock for your ship to come in. You have to jump off that dock and swim for it. So if that means learning new skills about your mental health and how to deal with things that you deal with. I deal with CPTSD, which is complex PTSD, or also referred to as childhood PTSD, from having things happen to you when you were a kid that made you develop habits that you now have as adults, and those habits no longer serve you. So you're essentially reprogramming the shit that's in your head for the last however long you're alive. So that's what I'm trying to do to make myself feel better. And none of it would have happened had I not actively said, fuck this shit. Like, my mom used to say, it's so vulgar, but shit or get off the pot. If you're not gonna fucking do it, then I don't know what to tell you. You can't do anything if you're not willing to change. And so I do have definitely some character flaws, but one of the things I've always been proud that I have is that when somebody tells me that I need to like shape up, that I'm fucking shit up, I always rely on my friends for that, because I try to surround myself with people who are honest with me to tell me the things that I need to hear that I might not otherwise hear. And when somebody brings this shit to my attention, initially my ego is like, fuck you, I'm not listening to that. But then, sometimes I'm open. Sometimes I'll be like, you know what, that's a valid point. I hadn't thought of that. I'm pretty good at doing that. Sometimes it hurts my ego a little bit, and I, metaphorically stomp away in my head. I'm not going to stomp away like a little kid, but, in my head I will kind of shut down and not say anything. But I'm very good at just listening and then taking it away and processing and thinking about it later and being like, well, you know what, that person loves me, and you know, they may very well have a valid point, so maybe I should put some attention on that and see. The other thing I'm good at doing is I'm always interested in psychology. Ever since I was a kid, I took psychology in college, and I always liked to study it. And I like to be able to analyze my own behavior so that I can fix it. You can't change a behavior that you don't know that you're having. So I'm really good at acknowledging that I have particular issues. I probably say that I have more issues than I actually have. Like, I'm pretty hard on myself, which is pretty common for CPTSD. But my point is that you can get past things, but not if you just wait and sit around for them to happen, and certainly not if you expect somebody else to fix it for you, right? My daughter's homeschooled, and I'll say to her, and we have this conversation every day. It's so annoying every day. She'll come up against like a situation where there's a story on one page and then questions on the other page. And there's a process, like everything there is that you do, there needs to be a process, or else it's just a fucking shit show. So I'll say, like, read all the questions first, make sure you understand all the questions, and then read the story, so that as you're reading it, some of those questions are going to still be fresh in your mind, and you can just be like, oh, that's the answer to this question, and then you write it down, and boom, you're already halfway done your assignment. And the reason I know this stuff is because I didn't do it when I was a kid. I fucking left everything to the last minute. I behaved exactly the way that she's behaving now. And had somebody sat down and laid it out to me, like, these are the steps. The first step is this step is this. I could have worked through it, but nobody did that. And so I'm trying to do that for her. But it's interesting as an adult that everything you do has a process. Everything. Brushing your teeth has a process. And if once you get that process down, regardless of if it's brushing your teeth, to having a shower, to working on your mental health, to, you know, working on everything that you want to work on, there's a process. And if you don't step into that process, you're never going to get through the process. But if you don't know that there's a process or what that process is, you can't fix it. And a lot of people I see lately are pushing therapy, and a lot of people I know are in therapy, and I was in therapy for a quick minute. I found that my therapist was sitting on the other side of the computer screen or the office and listening to me and nodding her head. So, like, I get just as much therapy out of doing a car chat, or I go to the city once a month. I leave my child with a caretaker, and I get to be in my car by myself, and a lot of times I work things out loud as I'm talking out loud to myself when I'm driving in my car. I work through a lot of issues by simply saying them out loud. And so anyhow, I just wanted to share that. It's a total rant out of nowhere, but I did feel like it was a valid point, and it's been helping me so far on my self-development journey. And I don't have the income, the financial support to do therapy, but that doesn't mean I can't heal from this shit. So I found a few YouTube channels where I've discovered my personal attachment style, and I've discovered different things, what that means, where it comes from, how to heal it, and I'm working every single day to get better. And initially I was like in January when I first started, I get to the end of February and I was like, fuck man, I got this shit licked. I know this. I got this after a month, right? I was like all over it. And then February came, and I think I cried like 3 weeks out of 4. And I was so sad, and I was so depressed, and I couldn't stop crying. And then March was sort of like, you know what I mean? So I like very, very clear hills and very clear valleys. And when I was coming up the other side after a valley, I would be able to, the timeline in my head of when things started to go off, I could actually see, okay, this happened, And then that happened, and it pushed me over, and and I could see it in my head. And so that helped me be able to see it more clearly as it was happening. I am working through some really serious anxiety, so many different levels of anxiety that I didn't even know were a thing. And of course, when you start working on it, you start bringing all that shit up to the surface that you've like dulled and numbed for so long, that the zero boundary pendulum seems to, at least in my case and from what I have heard of other people say, has swung very far to the other side. Whereas before I had no boundaries, now everything's a fucking boundary. Don't touch me. Don't talk to me like that. I'm not going to do that. So I'm working it out initially, and I'm finding verbiage is a big deal, and supplements. I had been through so much stress for so long, and I finally went to see a naturopathic healing doctor who gave me supplements for my adrenal gland, because I'd been through so much stress on such intensity of stress for such a long time that my adrenal glands weren't even working anymore. So I started taking supplements, which helped me put on a schedule so that I could kind of keep track of it. When you start giving yourself attention, then you start making yourself feel a little more important, and then you feel better about setting boundaries, and then you learn how to set boundaries, and then you practice setting boundaries with the people around you. Like my friend, had she been an unhealthy person and I told her these things, that made me uncomfortable, she might have said, well, go fuck yourself then, or whatever. But she's my friend, and she knew that I wasn't coming from a place of bad. I was coming from a place of just insecurity and needing to practice setting boundaries. So I'd rather have one friend in my life like that than 20 friends who I can't be honest with. So I'm super grateful for my friends. I don't have a whole lot of friends, but the people I do consider to be my friends are very much like that I know I can be honest with them. It's different because I'm an adult now, and many of my friends I've had since, well, I guess that's not true. I really only have about 4 friends, but it's different to make friends as an adult than it is as a kid, because you have to make up all that time of all your personal stories that they don't know about you or where you're coming from. So it's an interesting journey to make new friends as an adult, especially, I live in the woods by myself for a reason, and it's not because I'm a social butterfly, so but again, that's a trauma response. Being separated from people and not interacting with people, that's a trauma response. So I have to acknowledge that I have all these traumas, and that the thing, I was watching this video yesterday, this lady, she's called the Crappy Childhood Fairy, and I really like her. There's a few that I watch, and she's one of them, and I very much like her. And she had this big list of, if you do these things, you likely have like CPTSD, and that this particular activity is a trauma response. And I don't know how many she had, probably, 10 or 12. And I was like, oh my God, I do that. Yep, I do that. I do that. There was like maybe 3 on the list that I don't do. And I thought, holy crap. But again, knowledge and information is your power. And so if you can acknowledge that those are your things and that those are trauma responses, then when you catch yourself doing it, you can be like, okay, now just chill, take a breath, like go outside. I like to do gardening. I have anxiety. I have anxious energy, and if I don't do something with it, it culminates into a bad habit. And my thing is shopping. So if I have anxious energy and I don't go out and work in my garden and find a place to put that energy, next thing you're going to find me at the mall spending money I don't have on shit that I don't need. That it's not making me happy, because material shit doesn't make you happy. It's just a waste. So this past weekend I had a situation where I was super anxiety, and I didn't like it, and all I could think was, let's get the kid, we're going to the mall, we're going shopping, I don't care. And so I didn't go to the mall. Instead, I went outside and I grabbed 2 rolls of fencing that I already had, and I wrapped them around my garden to keep my chickens out of my garden. And I've been enjoying the lack of chicken pressure in my garden since last weekend. And every time I look out, I'm like, I did that. And it gave me something tangible to say, like, I used that energy that I knew could be destructive to do something that is making my life so much better. So finding an outlet and learning and developing your brain can be reprogrammed. You can do it, but it's not going to happen just because you're like, oh, I think it's time, I hope that today is a better day. It's not going to work like that. If you want today to be a better day, you have to establish what are the things that you did yesterday that didn't make it a better day, and then don't do those things today. One of my habits is I get up in the morning, I check my phone, and then next thing you know, I'm on the computer looking at stupid messages about stupid shit that don't mean anything. Now, granted, today I got a message, and it was a friend of mine, my mechanic actually, who I like very much. He's just the fucking coolest dude ever. And he sends me documentaries and shit. And when I get stuff from him, I watch them right away. I don't always respond, so I don't know if he knows that I watch them, but I watched them, and it was a very good documentary on Rumble? No, Twitter, because I can't log in. Elon won't give me my account back, so I'm not allowed to be on Twitter, but I can still watch stuff on Twitter. When people send it to me, I just can't, like, comment on it or anything like that, which I don't care. And so I was watching that, but I'm making a point now of checking my garden, and I take my supplements now. I have this routine every day that I have to take these supplements, and I have to do certain things when I first get up in the morning, and it's making me pay more attention to myself. And one thing I did notice, and I notice with a lot of people, it seems to be pretty common, is that we treat ourselves like shit. We treat ourselves in a way that we would never treat our friends or our pets or our children or even our family members that we may not even like. We wouldn't treat those guys the way that we treat ourselves. You would never look at your family member, even someone maybe you would, maybe you have some family members, or maybe you're that guy, but for the most part, you wouldn't look at somebody that you cared about and say, fuck, you're an idiot, or why the fuck did you do that? But we say that shit to ourselves. So you got to knock that off. You have to be nicer to yourself. When you catch yourself say mean things to yourself, you have to rephrase it. And I know it sounds retarded and gay, but you have to rephrase that shit. You have to say, like, you know what? No, I'm just learning this new task, or anybody could have made that mistake, or laugh. Laughing at your mistakes is the greatest thing. When I make a mistake lately, the last few years have been pretty tough, and when I make a mistake or someone laughs at something I do, I have gotten reasonably offended and, like, irritated and cranky and bitchy about it. But recently, since I've started, like, paying attention to my actions and trying to reduce my ego, now I can just laugh when I do something stupid. And I used to be able to do that. That's, for me, I'm trying to get back to more of what I used to be before my car accident and before my family was executed. I'm trying to be a little less intense and kind of step off the gas pedal a bit and just chill. That's what I need to do. Some people need to be less chill. Some people, all they do is chill, and they need to get out of their fucking pajamas and go, like, have a life and do something outside, But other people, like, I never stop. I just go all the time. I can't physically go all the time because I have personal injuries and stuff like that, but I go to the point of pain, and then I sleep, and then I go and I go and I go, and I don't chill. Like, I can't sit and watch a movie. If there's a movie playing, I'm doing dishes, I'm sweeping the floor, I'm something. It's so hard for me to just sit and watch a movie. So I'm trying very hard to just not fuss, and I have, like I said, anxious energy. But again, there's no need for me to get into this stuff. But the point is, if you want your life to change, you have to be active in the change. You have to wake up in the morning and ask yourself out loud in a voice that you can hear, what am I going to do today that's going to help me, make this day better than yesterday? Make me better at whatever skill that I'm trying to work on, whatever accomplishment I'm trying to do, right? If you want a promotion at work, find a way to stand out from everyone. Take a course, ask your boss, hey, I want a promotion at work. What can I do that will put me in the running for more money or a better job or whatever? Ask the people around you. Sometimes when you have CPTSD, the hardest thing to do is have a conversation. It's easy to stomp your feet. It's easy to go home after work and bitch to your friends about your situation. The hardest thing that I have found to do is to look someone in the eye and have an honest conversation with them. And when you can start practicing doing, the first time I did that, I cried when it was over and everything was fine, because I had worked myself up to such a point that I was terrified to even bring this conversation up. That was with a different friend of mine about a totally different topic. And at the end of it, I just hung up the phone and cried at how ridiculous, and the fact that I was 46 years old and just now learning how to have an honest, open conversation about my feelings. Like, I could tell you the truth about all kinds of stuff, but talking about feelings is a whole different ball of wax compared to giving you my controversial opinion about something. That's different. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now because I've gone on for like way too long. But I hope you guys have an awesome day. Get outside, wear some color, put some color on your fingernails, put some color on your clothing, brush your hair, find some clothes that are not ripped. Do things to make yourself feel good about you. That's all I can say. Get off grid, grow your own food, arm yourselves, and make friends with like-minded people. God bless the 23.